Hello and welcome to the third Java tutorial of this series. Today we're going to be going over if statements and Boolean logic. And so we'll get right into it. Here we have our main method, public static void main, string args, blah blah blah. This is our main method. And so here we have the form of an if statement. And so this form is just really to help us understand what we're looking at. So we have if open parentheses condition equals true, where condition is some sort of condition which evaluates to true or false. It's some sort of potentially a proposition. So condition is going to have a value of true or false, but how we get that true or false value is a whole other thing in itself. So we're saying condition equals true. So if the condition is equal to true, perform the body of our if statement, which can be defined by whatever is in between these two squirrely brackets. So we have system.out.println in if statement. Whoops. In if statement. So right now we're in the if statement. And so this is the form of an if statement. So let's go ahead and write that into some actual code, right? So let's make a Boolean condition, which is equal to true. And then let's make our if statement. So let's follow the form that we made. So if open parentheses condition equals true, open parentheses, enter. It'll automatically generate the closed squirrely bracket. And now let's print out what we stated. So system.out.println in if statement. And so if this is true, if our condition is true, let's enter the if statement. So I'm going to go ahead and run this and let's see what happens. So in if statement. So we did actually make it into our if statement, and that's basically it. But there are a couple of different ways we can go about this. So let's say we don't want to write equals true. If we just write if condition, we're saying if true, do this. So we're saying if whatever is in here evaluates to true, go ahead and do this. So this is the default value. If you do not state equals what, it's going to say if this evaluates to true, do something. But if it evaluates to false, then it's not going to do this. So let's say let's make condition false and see what happens. Nothing's going to happen. I don't mean to spoil it, but nothing's going to happen. So what if we say condition equals false, right? So condition equals false, and now we're saying this is a true statement. Condition does equal false, therefore the statement's true. And so essentially we can get rid of this too. Whoops. We can go ahead and get rid of this and then put an exclamation point before, and that's saying not. So that's the equivalent in Java of saying not. So not true. So if condition is not true, go in, and because condition is not true, it's false, this will run. Right? So now we're in the if statement, and so let's go ahead and try some arithmetic, right? So let's say int first val equals 1, int second val equals 2. And if I say first val plus second val equals 3, we should enter the if statement, and I'll make this a little bit better. I'll say first val plus 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 second val equals 3 in this case. Well, I can just put that in the same thing, equals 3, not 32. We have an error. Whoops, I forgot to put a plus. So I've probably mentioned this in previous videos, but if you're concatenating a integer or a string with another thing, you have to add the plus key because that's like the concatenation key. So we say 1 plus 2 equals 3. But what if we made this um, 4, and then it's not going to run, right? Because 1 plus 4 is 5, 5 does not equal 3, therefore this is not a true statement, and so it doesn't run. Now I'm going to introduce the else statement, and so if we type else, and then open squarely bracket, close squarely bracket, this means that if this is not true, no matter what, perform the else. There's no condition for the else. The only condition for the else to run is if the previous if statement is not true. So I'll write to the terminal, first val plus second val. Let me get rid of that. Does not equal 3. So now we'll see 1 plus 4 equals 5, and so 1 plus 4 does not equal 3. And so that makes sense. And you can see how this could be powerful. Like, if we can use arithmetic to say 1 plus 4 does not equal 3, and eventually it'll take user input and it'll make it a lot more useful. So what if we want more than one statement, right? So let's get rid of my else here and write else if. This is like a second condition. So if first val plus second val equals 5, then let's say the same thing. Whoops. Say the same thing, but equals 5, and then else. Let's enter the else and say we entered the else. And so we should go into the else if, which is 1 plus 4 equals 5. So what if we make this 4? And now we're in 8. If you guessed else, you are right. We entered the else because 4 plus 4 does not equal 3, and 4 plus 4 does not equal 5. Therefore, we entered the else. And essentially, that's about the gist of if statements. And you can compare strings, but you must keep in mind that if you're concatenating strings, you might run into some weird issue because strings are immutable in Java, and that essentially means that when you compare strings in Java, it goes by the memory location of the string and not the contents of the string. But Java stores strings with similar contents in the same memory location, but sometimes, depending on the operation, like concatenating a string, it will store it in a separate memory location, and then you have the two strings that are the same, where Java says they're not the same because they're not the same memory location. And so a quick way to get around that is the dot equals operator. So we can say SOUT, we'll say hello dot equals hello. And so the dot equals method um, takes each element of the left and right I can't think of the word off my top of my head, but it takes the left element and the right element, and it compares each index, each value. So it says H and H, E and E. So if we had 1 here, it would say, okay, this is going to return false. So look, we return false, and if we do 1, then we get, because they're the same. And if they're not the same, they're false, and if they're the same, they're true. And so this, just to summarize, equals with strings will sometimes work, sometimes it won't because strings are immutable, but the dot equals operator specifically goes through each character of each word and sees if they're the same, and if they're ever not the same, it will return false. And that's essentially if statements, and we kind of got into how strings are immutable, but there's some better resources online, which I highly encourage you watch.